When I was in college, house sitting had become a side hustle I counted on to get by. I'd do it for families that paid well, despite some eerie experiences. There was one house in particular, a century-old place with the creakiest floorboards. The family who owned it would go abroad once a year, leaving me to look after their fur cats. Nothing unusual, right? The previous times I'd stayed there, I'd noticed things, doors creaking, strange chills in certain rooms, lights flickering, but I always brushed them off. After all, the place was just old, right? But there was a particular night that made me swear I'd never go back. The family had just left on a 2-week vacation with no cell service. So if something went wrong, I'd be on my own, with only the cats for company. The first few nights went by normally. I'd go to school in the mornings, come back to the house to take care of the cats, and then spend the evenings studying or watching TV. The cats had their routine too. Each one would follow me at a distance, like silent shadows in a house that was much too quiet. One night, my boyfriend came over for dinner, bringing some comfort. We were watching TV in the guest room when he suddenly went pale, his eyes darting around like he'd seen something lurking in the shadows. "I don't like this place," he whispered. "Something's off. You should come home with me," but I didn't want to leave. This job was my escape from my chaotic home life. Reluctantly, he left, promising to check on me in the morning. I shut the door behind him, locked up, set the alarm, and headed back to the guest room to relax. That's when it all started. First, the TV. It began switching on and off by itself, tuning to static loud, crackling static, filling the silent room with noise. I turned it off, only for it to flick back on, the static louder this time. I unplugged it and sat in silence, hearing the faint sounds of footsteps upstairs. It sounded as if someone was pacing slowly, methodically, as if they knew exactly where they were going. My heart pounded as I counted the cats. Only 3 were there. One was missing, the youngest, the playful one. He often got into trouble, so I figured he'd somehow locked himself in a room. Following the sounds of faint scratching, I headed to the basement. With each creak of the stairs, the air grew colder. I reached the bottom, expecting to find the cat, but it was silent and empty. Then, from above, I heard the sound of tiny feet running across the floor, all for cats. I bolted up the stairs and found them all staring at the top of the staircase, eyes wide and unblinking. Their attention was fixed on a point I couldn't see. Then, as if in response, a single low, soft whisper echoed down the stairs. It called my name. I backed away, heart racing, and called my boyfriend to come back. He picked up and promised to stay on the phone until he arrived. But as I waited, the whispering grew louder, surrounding me, filling every corner of the house. Each time it would pause, the silence was more suffocating. I could almost feel a presence standing just behind me, breathing down my neck. The cat's eyes tracked something that moved along the shadows, slipping from the kitchen to the hallway and back again. When my boyfriend finally arrived, he took one look at my face and knew something was very, very wrong. We grabbed my things and left immediately. The next morning, I returned just to feed the cats and clean up. But before I left, something drew me to look down into the basement one last time. The air was heavy, like someone was watching from the dark. I forced myself to look away and shut the door for good, leaving behind a chill that would haunt me long after. For a while, there was only silence. At that moment, I thought everything would pass, but I knew deep down I had made a wrong decision. The atmosphere in the house felt like a trap, slowly pulling a piece of my life into itself. I realized I had to stay awake until morning to survive the night, but I couldn't leave the room. My eyes followed the shifting shadows on the ceiling as time seemed to stand still. Something inside me kept saying there was still something moving in the house, that I was being watched. I decided to gather my courage and check every corner of the house, especially the basement. I was so terrified, my every step felt heavier. As I entered the house's dark corners, hearing only my own voice, the silence only made me more uncomfortable. When I reached the basement, the cold air wasn't the only thing that hit me. It felt like a heavy presence was there, like someone was watching me. But there was no one, no person, no ghost. Just the vast abandoned rooms. It was as if the house's dark spirit was slowly surrounding me with every step. Suddenly, I heard a noise. A small creak. This time, it came from above. But it was different. Closer, faster. It sounded like something had fallen. My breath caught in my throat as I tried to locate the source of the sound. With every step I took, the pressure in the air seemed to grow. I could almost feel the weight of the house itself pressing down on me. I started climbing the stairs slowly, but then I noticed something moving inside the walls, a shadow slipping between them. At that moment, I realized the house wasn't just a house. It was something more, a place filled with an old curse, heavy with the painful memories of the past. Each room was marked with the remnants of something lost. In an instant, my hands began to tremble. I was scared of something coming for me. I quickly headed for the living room, but something stopped me. My eyes locked on a strange figure in the corner. It was a shadow. But this time, the shadow wasn't just a shape. It was a memory of something bloody. The house's spirit began to take form right in front of my eyes. Whispers filled the air from all corners of the house, soft and unnerving. It was as though the house itself was speaking to me, but the words were too faint to understand. I felt trapped, as if the walls were closing in. The fear started to consume me, making every moment seem like eternity. And then I realized someone was behind me. I turned slowly and met the eyes of a presence, staring from the deep black void. It moved in time with my every step, but it wasn't human. I could feel the heavy weight of something dark, something that had been with me from the very beginning. With every move I made, I knew it was following me. My own body seemed to become a part of this dark force. I backed away quickly, trying to get to the exit. But as I moved, I realized the walls were tightening, the space shrinking around me. I was running from something, but I couldn't escape. I could hear the sound of my own breath, each step heavy with dread. And then I saw it right behind me, too close to escape. My heart pounded in my chest, but I couldn't bring myself to turn around and face it. I stumbled toward the door, desperately trying to get out. I forced myself to shut it behind me, but as I did, I felt that presence lingering. The cold chill of its gaze burned into my skin. I locked the door and left, but it was too late. The house still had a piece of me. I returned the next morning, determined to finish feeding the cats and leaving for good. But before I could leave, something compelled me to look back one final time at the basement door. The air was thick, heavy with the feeling that I was still being watched. With a deep breath, I forced myself to look away. I shut the door for good, leaving behind a chill that would follow me for years to come.